the guidelines that we wrote were of two halves. So there was the kind of architectural and sort of, let's call it shelter spaces, and there was the support services. And actually there was a third bit, which is this kind of social component. So if you take a 16 to 25-year-old who's left home before perhaps they're able to cook themselves dinner, they're maybe even not able to wash their clothes, they don't know how to do a tax return, they don't know how to apply for a job, or any of those things that you essentially kind of learn from your family, they don't have. And then put on top of that any trauma which may exist from leaving home in whichever situation they are in. How do you support that? So the charities are doing incredible work, and we spent a lot of time consulting with them and looking at night shelters, night support, accommodation support, and day centres. A New Horizon Youth Centre, a day centre, and they essentially provide services. So we worked with them to understand what they do and what would be the perfect environment for them to do that in the best way they possibly can. And so in the case of youth homelessness, it was looking at kind of from something as simple as how you enter your front door for the first time, when you may have left something and not even be comfortable or acknowledge the situation you're kind of in, how you feel welcome, how it feels like home, how you eat dinner with everybody and feel welcome to join or not join, how you learn to cook in a way that you don't feel watched or insecure, how you can wash in a way that is dignified, how you can learn a language properly or get legal support, or it's this kind of diversity of space work on a 1-on-1 to a 1-on-5 to a 1-in-20 kind of basis. So everything we set in our guidelines ensured that those services could be bolted on and feel natural and not spread out or separate or not included, just part of kind of everyday life.
Right. Just a question about that. When you establish all the needs and with these young people, for instance, to what extent are they part of the discussion, and do they participate to your working groups and to the activities of your think tank?
When you say they, are you talking about the homeless users?
Yes, the young people, the homeless people, the three categories of people that you have identified.
Yeah, so for the guidelines, we worked with New Horizon Youth Centre, and we did we did a series of interviews in the space, some with us, some with leaders from the group if people weren't comfortable. We also made a film, so we did more deep interviews, and that fed back into our research. It was quite hard to get people that don't engage with architecture in the same way to get kind of clear answers. So we did it two ways. We had open conversation, and we also did a survey where we, based on what we discussed, kind of said things like kind of, would you feel more comfortable if your bedroom window overlooked a busy street or a garden, and lots of things like that, where we got kind of yes/no answers where people were more comfortable, or comparisons between places that they stayed. And then our spaces and our framework came off the back of that research and conversation.
Well, what is very interesting, I think, in your work is precisely the interest for young people. So can you tell us, and you have discussed that already, but can you tell us more about this movie that you just mentioned, the film We Are Not Bad Kids, and where we can see it, and what was the purpose, and what impact did it have?
Yeah, so we did that very kind of intuitively, actually, alongside the guidelines. So our guidelines are split into 3 books. The first one is the manifesto, so the case for change, why we need to do this. The second one was leading by example. So, honouring and explaining good examples that have been done by charities. And the third bit was our recommendations. That first chapter, the manifesto, it was very important that was very clear. And whilst the booklet was good, it wasn't compelling enough, we thought. So we wanted to really, when we launched the guidelines, make that case for change, that need for change, very, very prominent and visible. And the film was part of doing that, as well as feeding into our research, which we were doing anyway. Yeah,
and what was the impact? I mean, can you tell us more about both the what how the books were received, to what extent they had some influence, they were debated in the public debate, and same thing about the film. I know it's on YouTube, so we are not bad kids. Everybody can see it on YouTube. Can you tell us how it was received by either the general public or by the different groups that you are addressing?
Yeah, I think every step of this process, from the competition to the books to the film, has it gets a fantastic response, because I think everybody feels like they would like to do something, and everybody feels a bit disempowered as to how do you address something that is so huge, and how can I as an individual have an impact. And I think things like the film gave a clear route where people could say, oh, well, this is very clearly set out, and what can I do? So there's a lot of debate and discussion, and there was a lot of kind of noise, but how that's then translated into like a physical change in guidelines is yet to be seen. So I'd say it's very, very good for raising awareness. It's very good for kind of, widening your network and understanding in a broader sense how you can tackle the issue. But the important bit now is how that is then translated to something that helps ultimately the homeless users that deserves better.